How's it going, YouTube? It's Pilot Flame and we're back here with another video, and today we're going to be looking at Dragoon and what we can see from it coming in Final Fantasy XIV's next expansion, Shadowbringers. Please note that any media, tooltips, or videos that you see on this channel are from the Final Fantasy media tours in North America and Europe, so they are subject to change. So without further ado, let's get started. We're going to start off by looking at the role actions for all of the melee DPS. So the things that basically stay the same is Bloodbath, Leg Sweep, Second Wind, Feint, and Arm's Length, albeit Arm's Length got the recast increased to 2 minutes. And then True North is the last of the melee DPS role actions. However, it is on a 45-second recharge timer with a maximum of 2 charges being held for a duration of 10 seconds. So this is obviously super cool, especially for those ninjas, because you can't miss trick anymore. There's no excuses. So diving straight into the Dragoon ability, so from what I can tell, Dragoon is going to play very similarly to how it did before, with you having the alternating combos of the full thrust and the chaos thrust combos, comboing into your Fang and Claw and then wheeling thrust, or vice versa depending on what combo you're in. You still have the likes of all of your DPS utilities, you still have your jumps, which is what makes your class a Dragoon. And then you have your Life of the Dragon, where you can go Super Dragoon mode with Nistron and Gearskogul using that to enter it. So what little new abilities that they get? We'll start off with those. So obviously at level 70 you have access to Life of the Dragon, which is what your kit is designed around. So I'm going to touch on that briefly first, as it received a slight buff. So now with Blood of the Dragon and Life of the Dragon, you get a trait at level 78 where it basically, every time you go into Life of the Dragon, it's automatically 30 seconds. There's no having to basically make sure that you have 24 seconds or more going into it without the risk of not being able to cast 3 Nistrons. Now you just go in with 30 seconds, which is a nice change. What you can also do now is that you can go into Life of the Dragon with only getting 2 Eyes of the Brood, and the way you did that before was you were able to use Jump and Spine Shatter Dive while using Mirage Dive after getting the buff dive ready, in order to go towards the stacking of your eyes for the gauge. Now that is only 2 instead of 3. You only need 2 jumps in order to get into the maximum amount you would need to go to Life of the Dragon. However, Spine Shatter Dive, it no longer has the effect to give you dive ready. It is only off of jump, which sits on a 30-second cooldown. At level 74 you receive a trait which upgrades your jump to high jump, which is basically, I assume, the super quick jump that we saw in the job action trailer. I'm not sure if all the jumps are going to be like that, or if it's just high jump that's going to do that with the super fast animation, but it just does a bit more damage and functions exactly the same. With Spine Shatter Dive, it still sits on a 60-second cooldown and just does damage and basically functions the exact same way as it did before. So now you're still sitting on the same rotation, the same timing for going into Life of the Dragon. You can now just use Spine Shatter Dive more freely for DPS, without having to worry about it going towards a form of burst window, although you probably like to line it up with Trick Attack, considering it is a 60-second CD, and then you can obviously use it for movement purposes without having to worry if you're going to basically overcap, as it were, on Mirage Dives for dive ready buffs that go towards your Life of the Dragon. For your other abilities, so some of the abilities that were removed that are quite important, one of them being Heavy Thrust, as it no longer exists, as well as Impulse Drive. So both of your combos now function off of True Thrust, which then branch out into your Vocal Thrust, Full Thrust combo, and then True Thrust also branches out into Disembowel into Chaos Thrust. Now, Disembowel is quite important because the piercing debuff no longer exists for melees, so no longer will you require a Dragoon in order to go with a Bard or Machinist, or any range for that matter. It now just basically gives you increased 10% damage dealt, which basically replaces the piercing debuff that you used to have, but just for yourself. You also get a trait at level 76 which enhances your Vorpal and Full Thrust comboing potencies, as well as you also get a Radiant Thrust ready after the execution of a successful Fang and Claw into Wheeling Thrust, or vice versa, while adhering to the positional requirements, which is a weapon skill that is on the GCD that delivers a potency of 330 potency. That's the one where the Dragoon kind of does like the sideways like flip type thing in the job action trailer. So now you effectively have a 6-part combo. So if you're doing the full thrust combo, it's true thrust into vorpal thrust into full thrust into fang and claw, followed up by wheeling thrust, and then finishing it off with raiden thrust. And then the same thing goes for the chaos thrust combo, where it's true thrust, disembowel, chaos thrust, wheeling thrust, fang and claw into raiden thrust. So one of the longest combos in the game, if not the longest combo on the GCD. So that's something that's going to be unique to Dragoon, and has always seemed to be a little bit of an identity for them ever since they received wheeling thrust and fang and claw. They also have a 3-part AoE combo, so they have Doom Spike and the Sonic Thrust from previous expansions, but now they have Korth and Torment, which is the blue-looking like dragon tail that the Dragoon shoots out of his spear in the job action trailer. The one nice thing about this combo is that the second and third parts, so Sonic Thrust and Korth and Thrust, both extend the life of the blood of the dragon duration by 10 seconds on a maximum of 30 seconds as before. So that's something that's super useful. It is a very noticeable amount of AoE, and it just makes it so that you can, once you do one of these combos, your Blood of the Dragon's up for a good bit of time. So if you are only able to do basically one combo, you could still use your really long combo of 6 GCDs to make sure you obviously still keep up Blood of the Dragon after the fact. Piercing Talon still exists in its normal form. I believe a few of the melee still have their range spenders. And in terms of the DPS utility, so Battle Litany was obviously a very flexible cooldown. It could be used at 4 minutes because of its long duration. That was just touched slightly, down to 10% crit rate instead of 15. Dragon Sight still functions the exact same, except for apparently you can use it on yourself now as the main target, which means that the other person just doesn't get the 5% buff, which seems to be a bit weird. That could have just been just a bug, but Dragon Sight still functions the same. Blood for Blood was now changed to an ability called Lance Charge, which is on a 90-second recast timer, so up by 10 seconds, and increases damage dealt by 15%, which is the same, and the duration of 20 seconds is also the same. So no more low Dragoon and having the penalty of taking more damage while using Blood for Blood. Life Surge still functions the same, and Blood of the Dragon still functions exactly the same while increasing the potency of your jump and spine shadow dive by 30%. And lastly, you get an ability at level 80 called Star Diver, which is that Nidhogg type jump that the Dragoon used, which basically does 550 potency and then 30% less for all remaining enemies. It has a 20 yalm radius and will also dash you to the target just like Spine Shatter Dive does. So you can only use one of these, unfortunately, in your Nestron window. So you're going to be looking to do 3 Nestrons and 1 Star Diver during the life of the dragon. So it's a pretty cool ability. It's very iconic for Dragoon, considering they've always been attributed towards Nidhogg ever since Heaven's Ward. In terms of their other abilities, not much else. Dragoon's going to be basically Dragoon. You're still going to be playing around your buffs. They simplified those timers so that you have a more defined burst window. You're still going to have some fun playing around with Battle Litany with its longer cooldown, so in a more speed run environment, you can then be flexible with that ability. Since it's on a 3-minute cooldown, you can potentially hold it for 4 minutes so that it's on a better trick window for most people, as most jobs function on a 1-minute or 2-minute rotation. And Dragoon's it's just a lot of quality of life overall for Dragoon. They still are going to be doing a lot of burst damage. They're still going to have their normal wind-up time. They're still going to be very elusive on the battlefield. And they're just overall going to feel like a really cool class to play, like they have been during Stormblood, as well as parts of Heaven's Ward as well. And you're definitely going to not shy away from having a Dragoon in your party, even without the piercing debuff, which was removed, and all the other jobs had them removed as well. So Monk no longer has its blunt down, and same for the slashing debuffs for the other jobs as well. So that's going to do it for this video. If you liked the video, make sure to like the video, leave a comment in the section down below, and be sure to check out all the other videos on the channel. We're going to be uploading the Monk video in a little bit here, as I finish this one off and get this one processed away, and then we'll be on to the last two, and we only got a few days left till the early access, and I can't be more excited for it. I'm really looking forward to it and getting my hands on it, and seeing what Shadowbringers is all about. That's gonna do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Until the next one, take care.